The arena floated in the black sea of space, shining like a burning star. Thousands of alien ships circled around it, lights glowing, engines humming, voices echoing across the void, inside the great Colosseum. Creatures from 100 different worlds filled the seats, waiting for the fight to begin. They came to see blood, they came to see honor, they came to see weakness crushed. The spotlight fell on the center platform, a circular stage made of steel and glowing energy lines. Was there the duel would happen? A duel that everyone already believed had only one possible outcome. On one side stood the alien warrior princess. Tall and armored in shining black plates, her helmet glowing with blue light, her blade pulsing with energy, she was feared across many systems, her victories counted in hundreds, her pride stronger than steel. To her, this fight was nothing more than another show. Another easy win. On the other side stood the human, small compared to her height. Dressed in simple clothes, his only weapon, a pair of wooden sticks tied by a chain, the crowd roared with laughter, their alien voices shaking the walls. Is this a joke? Some hissed. A human with sticks? Against the princess? He will be broken in seconds. The warrior princess raised her weapon and pointed at him. Her voice sharp like thunder. You dare step before me with toys, she mocked. I will crush you quickly, so you may not suffer long. But the human did not reply. He only stood calm, his hands loose, his eyes steady, his breathing slow. There was no fear on his face, no trembling in his body, only quiet focus. The silence confused the crowd. It even unsettled the princess for a brief moment, but she quickly laughed it away. The gong of the arena echoed. The fight had begun. The princess charged forward, her heavy armor crashing against the floor, her blade raised high, glowing brighter as it cut through the air. The sound was terrifying. A storm of metal and energy rushing toward the human. The crowd screamed with excitement. Sure, they were about to witness the human cut down in a single strike. But the human moved, not with panic, not with clumsy speed, but with perfect rhythm. He slid to the side, his nunchucks spinning lightly in his hands, the blade missing him by the width of a hair. The alien audience gasped, their voices suddenly caught in their throats. The princess snarled and turned, swinging again, faster, harder. A strike that would have crushed steel. Again the human moved, twisting, stepping, spinning. The wooden sticks snapping through the air to block and redirect the blade. The sound echoed like thunderclaps, wood against energy, fragile against powerful, yet somehow unbroken for the first time. The laughter in the arena began to fade. Whispers grew among the crowd. How did he move like that? Why is he not dead yet? Even the princess's eyes narrowed inside her helmet, her anger beginning to grow. She struck again and again, her attacks turning into a storm, but the human flowed like water, each step measured, each swing precise. His nunchuck spun faster, catching the eye of every spectator. The once toys now looked alive, glowing under the arena lights as they danced in his hands. It was not raw strength that held him alive. It was skill, timing, and control. The alien crowd felt a strange chill, something they had not expected to feel, suspense for the first time. They could not predict the end of the fight. The princess roared in frustration, her armor glowing as she prepared to strike with her full power. She would end this game in one blow. She would remind the galaxy that humans were weak, fragile, and laughable, but the human's calm eyes never wavered. He raised his nunchucks slowly, spinning them once, twice. The sound like a storm breaking in the sky. The crowd went silent, their hearts frozen in their chests. The next strike would decide everything. The arena of stars held its breath, waiting, watching, trembling with suspense. The crowd cheered again as the warrior princess raised her blade high, her armor glowing under the lights of the arena. She was taller than most aliens in the Colosseum, her figure covered with black and silver, plates that shimmered with energy. Her helmet carried a crown of light, sharp edges that looked like burning fire. Every movement of hers sent waves of power through the air, reminding the galaxy why she was feared. Her name was Soraya, daughter of the High Warlord, trained in the arts of war since her first breath. Stories of her battles were sung across 10 star systems, her victories carved into the memory of her people. No enemy had ever broken her armor, no weapon had ever touched her skin. She was called the Blade of Eternity, and today she was to prove her title once more. The human standing across from her seemed small, almost fragile. His weapon was laughable. Compared to the energy sword she carried, the crowd shouted her name, filling the arena with echoes of faith and power. Soraya, 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 they roared, their voices like thunder. She lifted her chin, at swelling in her chest. Do you not understand? She said, her voice carried across the arena. I have destroyed champions greater than you, warriors stronger than your kind, and yet you dare to face me with sticks? With toys? Her laugh shook the walls, filled with confidence and arrogance. The human did not reply, his silence a strange shield. It was as if her words had no power over him. He only held the nunchucks lightly, his eyes focused, his stance relaxed. This angered her, for she wanted fear. She wanted him to bow before her. Strength, instead, she saw calmness, like a river that never broke. She remembered the wars she had fought, the blood she had spilled. No one had ever dared to mock her. But this silence felt like mockery. She tightened her grip on her sword, her pride burning hotter. She would end him quickly, she decided, crush him so fast that no one would ever question her again. The gong of the arena echoed again, and Soraya moved. Her speed was terrifying, her blade glowing brighter as she dashed forward. Each step was a storm, ground shaking beneath her heavy boots. The human twisted aside, his body flowing like air, his sticks moving with grace. The clash of wood against energy rang out, shocking the crowd. She growled, swinging again, her strikes sharp and heavy. But no matter how fast she moved, the human always stepped away at the last moment. His nunchuck spun, redirecting her blade, tapping her armor, finding tiny gaps. The crowd gasped. Each time would met steel, unable to believe their eyes. Enough. She roared, her pride wounded by this dance. With one powerful motion, she lifted her blade high and smashed it downward with all her strength. The floor cracked beneath the strike, sparks flying, dust rising, but the human was no longer there. He had stepped aside with perfect timing. Her blade cut only air, her strength wasted. The audience began to whisper, "This is not right. Why is the human still standing? Why does the princess not crush him?" Their doubt grew, and she could feel it burning against her pride. Her chest tightened, her anger rising. Never before had a crowd doubted her. Never before had her power been questioned. She turned her gaze back to the human, who stood calm, spinning his nunchucks slowly. The sticks hummed in the air like a storm waiting to break. His silence now felt heavier, more dangerous. Soraya's pride would not allow this. She raised her blade again, her armor shining brighter. "I will not play with you any longer," she declared, her voice echoing across the arena. "This is the end for you." The crowd cheered again. But the cheer now carried a note of doubt. They wanted her to win. But a small voice inside them feared what might come. The princess leaped forward, her sword a streak of light. She aimed for the human's chest, ready to pierce through him and end the fight. But once again, he moved, smooth, quiet, unstoppable. The nunchuck snapped against her wrist. A sharp crack of wood against armor. She gasped, feeling a jolt run through her arm. Her blade almost slipping, the audience froze in silence. For the first time in her life, Soraya had been struck. The human's calm eyes met hers, and she saw something that chilled her. Not weakness, not fear, but confidence. It was as if he had been waiting for this moment all along. Her armor still stood strong. Her pride still burned, but deep inside her, a seed of doubt began to grow. She had mocked him, called his weapon a toy, but now she wondered, even if only for a second, if she had made a mistake. The arena of stars glowed brighter, the crowd restless. The human raised his nunchucks again, ready, and the warrior princess felt for the first time the weight of true suspense. The air inside the arena of stars grew heavy. Every alien eye was fixed on the platform, waiting for the moment when pride and silence would finally meet in true combat. The crowd was no longer laughing. Their voices had grown quiet, their breath caught in their throats. They could feel it, the tension. The storm about to break, the warrior princess Soraya gripped her glowing sword tighter. Anger burning inside her chest. Never before had she felt the sting of doubt. Never before had her armor been touched, but the human had done it, with nothing more than sticks, with nothing more than calm eyes. Her pride demanded victory. Her people demanded blood. The human stood across from her, steady as stone. His nunchuck spun slowly, making a soft hum in the air. He looked like a man who had already seen battles far greater than this. He moved not with fear, but with patience, like someone waiting for the exact moment to strike. The gong echoed again, deep and sharp, and the first true clash began. Soraya launched forward, her armored boots striking the floor like thunder. Her blade cut the air with a burning glow, fast as lightning. The human twisted aside. The nunchucks, snapping up in a blur, would met steel. Sparks flew. The sound echoed across the arena like drums of war. The crowd gasped. Some cried out in disbelief. Her first strike had been blocked, redirected, not by another blade of energy, but by wood. She swung again, furious, each strike heavier than the last. The human dodged, bent, spun, every movement smooth like flowing water. Each time her sword cut the air, his sticks were already moving, already waiting. Soraya roared, her voice shaking the Colosseum. She struck downwards. A strike meant to split him in half, but he moved closer instead of away, the nunchucks wrapping around her blade with perfect timing. In one sharp motion, he pulled, redirecting her swing to the ground. The floor cracked under the power of her own strength, dust flying high. The audience leapt to their feet, voices mixing in shock and fear. How could a human, so small, so weak, control the power of the princess? Some shouted that it was trickery. Some whispered that it was skill beyond imagination. All eyes widened as the human stepped back, calm, letting his nunchuck spin again. Soraya's chest burned with shame, her pride bleeding. She had been forced to miss again, forced to bend before a human. Her grip tightened, her teeth clenched, her heart beating faster. She promised herself she would crush him with her next strike. No matter the cost, she rushed forward, her sword glowing brighter, her armor sparking with energy. She swung high, low, sideways, each strike a storm of fury. The human met her storm with calm rain, each movement timed to perfection. The nunchucks tapped her armor, snapped against her gauntlets, struck her shoulder plates at first. The hits seemed small, harmless, but every strike left a mark, a dent, a spark. Piece by piece, her invincible armor began to feel weaker. The crowd's silence deepened. They no longer saw a hopeless fight. They saw balance. They saw danger. They saw the possibility that the human might actually win. Soraya's breathing grew heavier, her arms slower. The human's movements only grew faster, sharper. His nunchucks spun in circles of fire, each swing faster than the eye could follow. To the crowd, it looked like magic. But to him it was only rhythm, control, training. Finally, the clash reached its first turning point. Soraya raised her blade high for one last heavy strike. The human moved in close, the nunchuck snapping across her chest plate with speed too fast to see. The armor cracked, a sound sharp and terrible, echoing like glass breaking. The princess stumbled back, her eyes wide inside her helmet. Her armor, her pride, had been marked. The human stood still, breathing slow, his eyes calm as ever. He had drawn first blood, not with steel, not with lasers, but with wooden sticks. The audience exploded in noise, half cheering, half screaming. Some could not believe it, some shouted. It was impossible, but the truth stood before them. Clear as the broken line across her armor, Soraya gritted her teeth, rage boiling. This was no longer just a duel. This was now personal. She would crush him, or she would fall. The first clash was over. But the battle was only beginning, and in that moment, the arena of stars became silent once more. Every spectator knew they were no longer watching a simple fight. They were watching history. Asterisk, the echo of cracking armor still floated in the arena. The crowd had seen what no one believed possible. A human, armed only with wood and chain, had marked the armor of Soraya, the blade of eternity. Whispers spread through the seats like fire. Did you see it? He struck her chest plate. No one has ever done that before. Their voices rose and fell, doubt filling the Colosseum. The galaxy's champion was no longer untouchable. Soraya stood frozen for a heartbeat, her breath sharp inside her helmet. The crack in her armor was small, but to her it felt like a wound cut deep into her pride. She had mocked him, laughed at his weapon, but now her heart carried something new, something she hated to feel fear. The human did not advance. He simply let his nunchucks spin in the air, slow, calm, controlled. The wooden sticks hummed as they cut circles through the light. He did not speak. He did not roar. His silence was louder than her rage. The princess raised her sword again. Her pride refusing to break, she told herself it was luck. A chance strike, nothing more. She was still the strongest, still undefeated. Still the warrior who had crushed champions greater than this human. Her anger drove her forward, her blade burning with deadly energy. But the human moved with rhythm. He dodged with steps that were too smooth. He struck with timing too precise. It was not luck. It was not chance. It was skill, ancient and hidden. As the crowd leaned forward, whispers turned to questions. Where did he learn this? What training makes a human move like that? The answer was a story unseen, a history untold. The human had trained in silence. In places far from the stars, he had lived under crushing gravity, where each step felt like carrying a mountain. He had fought in endless nights, where one mistake meant death, and in his hands, the nunchucks had become more than wood. They were an extension of his spirit, not tools, not toys, but pieces of his soul. Every swing carried memory, every strike carried discipline. The crowd did not see weapons. They saw the truth of his training. A hidden skill that turned weakness into strength, a hidden skill that no alien armor could ignore. Soraya attacked again, her blade flashing like fire. But now the human strikes were faster, sharper. The nunchuck snapped against her gauntlets. Her thigh plates, her shoulder, each tap landed on a weak point, each strike placed with deadly accuracy. The armor that once glowed with pride now sparked with cracks. Crowd gasped louder with every hit. This was no accident. This was mastery. Soraya's anger grew, her movements wilder. But the wilder she became, the calmer he remained. She swung with fury, but he bent with grace. She roared with rage, but he answered with silence. And each time with touched steel, her fear grew stronger. The audience now leaned forward, silent in awe for the first time. The princess looked less like a champion and more like prey. The human was not fighting to survive, he was teaching. A lesson written in rhythm, balance, and hidden skill. Soraya's chest burned. Her heart racing, she felt her body growing heavy, her arms slower. But the human only moved faster, his sticks dancing in the air like lightning. Every strike carried the weight of his unseen past. Every swing spoke words he never needed to say. Finally, one strike landed on her side plate with perfect force. The armor cracked wide, a piece breaking loose. Crashing to the ground with a metallic clang, the sound rang across the Colosseum, sharp and final. The crowd gasped, as if their hearts had been struck too. The princess staggered, her pride bleeding. She looked at the human, her voice shaking with rage and disbelief. "What are you?" she demanded. The human did not reply. He only spun his nunchucks once more. The sound echoing like a storm building in the sky. The answer was clear without words. He was not just a fighter, not just a man with sticks. He was proof that humanity carried more than flesh and bone. They carried will. They carried spirit. They carried skill born from struggle, skill hidden until the moment it was needed most. The arena of stars trembled with suspense. The fight had changed. The tide had turned. And now every alien in the galaxy leaned forward, because they all knew the truth. The human was no longer the weak one in this duel. He was the danger. The clang of broken metal echoed across the arena of stars. A piece of the princess's armor slid across the floor, sparks dancing as it fell silent. The crowd gasped as one voice, thousands of alien throats catching the sound of disbelief. Never, in all the fights they had watched, had Saraya's armor been broken. The warrior princess stood still for a heartbeat, her chest rising and falling. She looked down at the exposed part of her side, a weakness she had never known before. Her pride screamed inside her, her anger boiled, but above all, something colder slipped into her heart: doubt. The human stood calm, his nunchucks spinning in lazy circles. He looked untouched, his breathing smooth, his eyes steady. To the crowd, it was clear. This was not chance. Every crack in her armor was his design, every strike chosen with purpose. Saraya roared, her voice like thunder. Her blade flared with light brighter than before. She refused to bow, refused to be humiliated by a human with toys. With speed born of fury, she lunged forward, her sword cutting arcs of fire through the air. The human stepped lightly, flowing like water over stone. His sticks flashed, striking again and again. Tap on her gauntlet, crack on her shoulder plate, snap against her thigh. Each hit was small, but together they formed a storm. The sound of wood against steel echoed like a drum beat, faster, harder, sharper. The audience leaned forward, eyes wide. They were no longer watching a fight. They were watching the fall of something they thought eternal. The invincible armor of the blade of eternity was breaking before their eyes. Saraya struck with her full strength. Her blade screamed through the air, glowing hot, but the human bent low, spun sideways, and in one breath he was behind her. His nunchuck struck the backplate with a sound like shattering glass. The armor cracked again, a glowing scar spreading across its surface. The crowd erupted into noise, screams, cheers, disbelief. Some shouted for Saraya to finish him. Others cried that the human was unstoppable. The Colosseum shook with their voices, but the human did not seem to hear. He was lost in rhythm, in the storm he himself had created. Saraya's rage grew wild, her movements less precise. Her pride drove her to swing harder, faster, but each strike grew desperate. And desperation is weakness. The human read her like an open book, his body moving before her blade even arrived. Each dodge perfect, each counter sharp. The nunchucks became blurs of wood and chain. One strike snapped her shoulder plate free, crashed to the floor. Another smashed into her gauntlet, shattering it into pieces. Her armor, once shining with glory, now lay scattered across the arena like broken glass. The audience went silent, their disbelief turning into awe. The princess, the warrior who had never fallen, was now standing half exposed before a human. Her breath came heavy, sweat dripping beneath her helmet. Her arms trembled as she lifted her sword again. She looked at him with fury, but also with something she never expected to feel: respect. For the first time she knew this was no ordinary duel. This was no ordinary enemy. This was a human who carried something stronger than armor, stronger than pride, the will to fight with nothing but himself. The human moved forward, slow and steady, his eyes locked on hers, his nunchucks spinning with a low hum. The sound filled the arena like the heartbeat of war. Tap, spin, hum, the rhythm of inevitability. Saraya lifted her sword one last time. Her armor cracked, her body heavy, her pride bleeding, but she refused to fall without one final strike. She dashed forward, faster than the crowd thought possible. Her blade roared as it cut downward, filled with all the fury left in her. The human met her storm with silence. He stepped in close, his nunchuck snapping in a blur, one strike to her wrist. The sword flew free, another to her chest. The breastplate shattered. And then, with a final spinning blow, her helmet cracked, a line splitting it down the center. The sound of shattering metal rang like a bell across the arena of stars. The invincible armor of Saraya, the blade of eternity, lay in pieces at her feet. The crowd was silent, stunned, frozen in disbelief. They had just witnessed the impossible. The princess fell to one knee, her pride broken with her armor. Her blade gone, her breath heavy, her heart racing. She looked up at the human, who stood calm, steady, unshaken. His nunchucks rested at his side. his silence louder than 1,000 cheers. The Colosseum waited, every alien holding its breath. They had seen the shattering of a legend, and they knew the duel was no longer about pride or laughter. It was about respect, about the truth of strength. The human had shown it, and Soraya, in the ruins of her armor, could not deny it. Asterisk, the arena of stars had gone silent. The echo of broken armor still hung in the air like the memory of thunder. Soraya, the blade of eternity, knelt on one knee, her once invincible plates scattered in pieces across the floor. The human stood tall, calm, his nunchucks resting in his hands. Spinning slowly like the ticking of an unseen clock, every alien in the crowd leaned forward. They had laughed at him when he entered. They had called him weak, fragile, toy in the face of true power, but now their laughter was dead. Now they looked at him with something else: fear. Respect. Soraya's breathing came heavy inside. Her cracked helmet, her pride felt heavier than her body. Her chest tight with rage and disbelief, her blade lay broken on the ground. Her armor no longer whole. She wanted to deny it, to scream that it was impossible. But her heart knew the truth: he had broken her. The human did not attack. He did not rush to finish her. He simply stood, eyes steady, body still. It was as if he waited for her to choose what came next. His silence forced her to face herself, and that silence was sharper than any blade. The crowd began to murmur, "Why does he wait? Why does he not finish her?" But a few, wiser than the rest, whispered the truth: he is not here to humiliate. He is here to prove. Soraya clenched her fists, her pride screaming. She could not bow, she could not fall, not before her people, not before the galaxy. With a roar, she tore off her broken helmet and cast it aside. Her face was revealed to the entire air, and eyes burning, jaw tight. If she was to fall, she would fall as herself, not as a mask of steel. The human's eyes did not change. He did not smirk. He did not mock. He simply acknowledged her with a steady gaze. It was not victory he carried in his look, but something far more dangerous: respect mixed with warning. She stood again, her body trembling, without her armor, without her blade. She was exposed, but she still had her strength, her speed, her will. She raised her fists, bare and scarred, and faced him. The crowd roared in approval, for even broken, their princess refused to kneel. The human nodded once, as if accepting her choice. Then the storm began again. Soraya lunged forward with a wild punch. Her strike was fast, powerful, but unpolished. Without her blade, the human moved smoothly. Stepping aside, the nunchuck snapping against her arm, she grunted in pain but swung again, refusing to yield. Each strike was answered, redirected, countered. The wooden sticks tapped her ribs, her shoulder, her thigh. Every hit small, yet every hit heavy. The audience felt the tension grow with each sound. This was no longer a fight of weapons. This was a fight of wills. The human was testing her, breaking her, reshaping the very meaning of strength in front of the galaxy. Her body grew slower, her breath heavier, but her spirit still burned. She refused to fall, even as pain spread across her body. The human saw this, and for the first time, his movements shifted. No longer just defense, no longer just testing. Now he moved with full intent. His nunchucks spun faster than the eye could follow. They became a blur of wood and chain, the air humming with their speed. The sound was like lightning breaking through a storm. The crowd froze, their hearts beating. With the rhythm of the weapon, Soraya struck with one final desperate punch. The human moved with perfect precision. The nunchuck snapped across her chest, her side, her arm. A final spinning strike came down across her back, and she fell to the floor, gasping, her body unable to rise. The arena of stars went silent again. Every creature, every voice, every ship that circled the Colosseum held its breath. The blade of eternity, the undefeated princess, lay defeated, and the one who stood victorious was a human, a species the galaxy had mocked. Underestimated, ignored, the human did not raise his fists in triumph. He did not bow to the crowd or claim glory. He simply stood, breathing steady, his nunchucks still. It was as if victory had never been his goal. The silence he carried spoke louder than any cheer. Soraya lifted her head. Her voice weak but clear. Her eyes burned, not with rage, but with something different to acknowledgement. "You are no toy," she whispered, her words carried across the arena, the crowd hearing every syllable. "You are a warrior," the aliens gasped. Never had the princess spoken such words. Never had she given respect to an opponent, but in that moment, respect was the only truth. The turning point had come. It was not only the fall of Soraya's armor, it was the fall of arrogance, the fall of the galaxy's belief that humans were weak. In one battle, with nothing but wooden sticks, a human had changed everything the arena of stars would never forget, and neither would the galaxy. The arena of stars stood frozen. The dust of battle still hung in the air. Broken pieces of armor glittered across the floor like fallen stars. And in the center of it all, Soraya, the blade of eternity, lay defeated. The crowd had no words. These were voices used to cheering, mocking, roaring for blood. But now silence gripped every throat. They had seen something that defied every belief they held. A human, the weakest of species in their eyes, had broken the galaxy's champion. The human stood calm, his nunchucks still, his chest rising and falling with steady breath. He did not raise his weapon high. He did not roar in triumph. His silence was his victory.
Ali.
And it carried more weight than thunder. Soraya's body ached. Her pride bled. But as she pushed herself up on one trembling arm, she felt something new in her heart. Not rage, not humiliation, but a heavy respect. She looked up at him, her voice hoarse yet strong. "You fought with spirit, not armor, not steel, spirit." Her words echoed across the Colosseum. Every alien held their breath. The warrior princess had never spoken like this before. The human's eyes met hers. He gave no answer, only a slight nod, but that nod was louder than words. It told her that he had never come for glory. He had come to show the truth. Soraya struggled to her feet, her armor gone, her sword shattered. She stood bare before the galaxy, not as an invincible warrior, but as a fighter who had been tested and changed. Slowly, she lowered her head, bowing not to weakness, but to honor. The crowd gasped. The princess of war had bowed to a human. Then, like a wave breaking across the sea, the silence shattered. First whispers, then roars. Then a storm of voices filled the arena. They chanted not just her name, but his, the human's name, spread across 1,000 alien tongues. A sound that would travel across the stars. Human. 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 Soraya raised her hand to quiet them, her voice clear. "From this day forward, let it be known," she declared, "humanity is no toy. No weak race to be mocked. They are warriors, their spirit sharper than blades, stronger than armor. Let the galaxy remember this day, the day one human broke the blade of eternity." The arena shook with thunderous applause. The ships outside blazed their lights, sending signals across the void. The message was clear. The galaxy would never look at humanity the same way again. The human remained calm, his weapon resting. At his side, for him, this was not triumph. It was proof. Proof that spirit could overcome pride, proof that will could defeat steel, and proof that even the smallest voice could echo across the stars. Soraya stepped closer, her eyes meeting his. "You have my respect," she said quietly, so only he could hear, "and you have my fear. Because I know this is only the beginning." The human gave no reply, but his silence told her she was right. He turned, walking away from the center stage. The crowd's roar followed him, a storm of voices that carried far beyond the arena. Every planet, every empire, every ruler would hear of this fight. The duel that became legend. As Soraya watched him go, she touched the broken pieces of her armor. She had lost. But she had gained something far greater than another victory. She had gained perspective. She had seen the truth with her own eyes. And deep in her heart, she knew this was not the end. It was the beginning of something larger, something unstoppable. The galaxy had mocked humanity for centuries, but now, the galaxy whispered their name with respect, and respect was the first step to fear. fear of what humanity might become, fear of what they already were. The arena of stars glowed brighter than ever, not because of the lights, not because of the ships, but because history had been written in that ring. A legend born not from steel or energy, but from wood, chain, silence, and spirit. The crowd would return to their worlds, carrying the story with them, and each time it was told, the words would grow, till it became more than just a duel. It would become a warning, a prophecy. Never underestimate a human. The human stepped through the gates of the arena, disappearing into the shadows. The Colosseum still roared his name, but he did not need their praise. He had already won what he came for, respect, and in the heart of Sariah, in the heart of the galaxy, that respect would burn forever.